Hello everyone, welcome to EduRev. We will be doing practice questions on reading comprehension today. I am hoping that you have gone through the concept videos of RC, understood all the concepts and taken notes, and only then you have come to this video to solve the questions. So let's start with the first passage. Passage 1. It is a strategy based passage. The fact that a superior product can generate a competitive advantage for a company does not mean that every attempt at improving a product's quality will create an advantage. Investments in product quality, like those in marketing and distribution, must be weighed against all other types of investments with regard to direct, tangible benefits such as increased profitability, including one or both of decreased costs and increased revenue resulting from an investment. If a company is already competitive with others in the market in providing a product that is satisfactory to customers and avoids a negative reputation, then investment in increasing the quality of the product may be wasted, because product quality, so long as it exceeds a minimum threshold, is rarely a primary factor for most customers in their buying decisions. Now, what does this passage mean? That a superior product can generate an advantage, but not all the time. Whenever you are investing in a product quality, that has to be weighed against the other elements. And only when you see a need the increased product quality, then you go for the investment. Then it also says that if a company is already competitive with others in the market in providing a product, let's say you are already satisfied with the product that's there in the market, then investment in the product quality may be wasted. Then in that case, the investment in increasing the quality may be wasted because the customer is already thinking that the product quality is of the highest level, and it's rarely a primary factor for most customers in their buying decisions. So this first paragraph gives me an overall idea plus the flow of the passage. So here we have written this is the one line summary of the passage. Now look at the second one. It says, the concept was not understood by executives of one leading toy company which failed to improve its competitive position despite tremendous investment in strengthening the durability of its wooden toys. The toy company's executives did not recognize the leading role in which the brand names of the company and that of their primary competitors play in the buying decisions of their customers. As such, customers who are satisfied with a certain brand tend to remain loyal to that brand despite changes in the quality of products made by that brand or any of its competitors. Similarly, they fail to analyze and properly understand the negative effects of an improvement in product's quality, whereby their future purchases by customers loyal to their brand were actually cannibalized by the improved durability and extended lifespan of the newly improved toys. The only positive outcome of the improved product quality was the ability to easily market the toys to customers. Now, what do you mean by cannibalized? We have read it here. So, what do you mean by cannibalized? It means one of your variants of the brand is killing your own brand because customers are confused about which product to buy. Now, I can easily say that this paragraph is giving me an example of the toy company and how increasing quality did not help. Did not help. So this is what we have understood from the passage. Let's move on to the questions. According to the passage, investments in product quality are comparable to investments in marketing and distribution in terms of their ability to measure the direct results they produce. The first option, increased revenues they eventually produce? No. Manner in which they should be analyzed? This could be. Insufficient basis upon which executives research them? This could also be an answer. Level of competitive advantage they provide to a company? No, it is not talked about. So now between B and C. B has a vague reference. B has a vague reference to the passage, and this we have done in the concept that anything that is vague is to be avoided. So C has to be the answer, because investments, we have read here, investments in product quality like those in marketing and distribution must be weighed against other types of investments with regard to direct tangible benefits such as increased profitability resulting from an investment. So C is the correct option. The primary purpose of this passage is to, so basically this is the central idea based question. This is the central idea based question. A. Compare potential positive and negative outcomes of a type of business investment. No, this is extremely generic. So this should be eliminated. Suggest greater due diligence into a type of business investment. This is just a part and not the overall idea of the passage. So this should also be eliminated. Illustrate a variety of cases in which a type of business investments could fail to achieve greater revenue. This has also taken just one example and not the overall. So this is also gone. D. Analyze the general problems of a company caused by the certain type of business investment. No, general problems of the company are not analyzed. So not this. E. Criticize the manner in which managers tend to consider costs and benefits of business investments. Yes, definitely, because criticism is the whole question around where it shows you how the managers in the toy company did not consider the increase in the product quality with respect to other investments. So this has to be the answer. The passage suggests which of the following about the quality of the product produced by the toy company prior to its investment in enhancing the product quality. Option A, it enabled the toy company to satisfy customers at an acceptable rate. So there is a line in this paragraph that if a company is already competitive with others in the market in providing a product that is satisfactory to the customers and avoids a negative reputation, then investment in increasing the quality of the product may be wasted, because the product quality, so long as that exceeds a minimum threshold, is rarely a primary factor for most customers in their buying decisions. So option A can be, so before the investment it is definitely satisfying the customer, so this could be the answer. B. It would likely weaken the toy company's competitive position with respect to leading toy companies. No. C. It had already been improved after it caused damage to the toy company's reputation in the past. This is also unknown. So no. D. It was slightly better than that of the toy company's major competitors. This also has no reference in the passage. It needed to be improved to attain a similar level to that of the competing toy companies. This also has no reference. So the options E, D, C cancel out and the answer is A. The next question. The passage suggests that the toy company's executives failed to consider whether or not the product quality improvement. So we had a line here. Similarly, they failed to analyze and properly understand the negative effects of an improvement in the product quality, whereby their future purchases by customers loyal to their brand were actually cannibalized by the improved durability and extended lifespan of the newly improved toys. So, the option A was overly complex to the point that it could not easily be described to potential customers in marketing materials. Complexity is not talked about in the passage. It is not talked about, so no. B. Would considerably improve the experience of the individuals who use the toy. No, it did not improve. C. Could be sustained if the number of toys manufactured was significantly increased. This is not talked about. It is out of scope. So no. D. Could have an adverse effect on their sales. This could be the answer as we refer to the line there. This means customers were confused about the improved durability and that would reduce their sales. So E was sufficient to raise the product quality to a level comparable with that of its competitors? No. So D would be the answer. Passage 2. It is taken from the environment topic. Let's start with it. Coral reefs are one of the most fragile, biologically complex and diverse marine ecosystems on Earth. This ecosystem is one of the fascinating paradoxes of the biosphere. How do clear and thus nutrient poor waters support such prolific and productive communities? Part of the answer lies within the tissues of the corals themselves. Symbiotic cells of algae known as zooxanthella carry out photosynthesis using the metabolic wastes of the coral, thereby producing food for themselves, for their corals, hosts, and even for other members of the reef community. This symbiotic process allows organisms in the reef community to use sparse nutrient resources efficiently. So basically, this passage talks about the introduction to ecosystem. Some kind of paradox which exists here, that is contradiction, that water does not have nutrients, so there is a point of survival. Let's move on to the second paragraph. Unfortunately for coral reefs, however, a variety of human activities are causing worldwide degradation of shallow marine habitats by adding nutrients to the water. Agriculture, slash and burn land clearing, sewage disposal, and manufacturing that creates waste byproducts all increase nutrient loads in these waters. Typical symptoms of reef decline are destabilized herbivore populations and an increasing abundance of algae and filter feeding animals. Declines in reef communities are consistent with observations that nutrient input is increasing in direct proportion to growing human populations, thereby threatening reef communities sensitive to subtle changes in nutrient input to their waters. So here we are talking about degradation. All the dumping that is happening is increasing the nutrient load in the water. So this para tells about the uneven balance shift in the ecosystem. And it also tells about the negative impact on the ecosystem. So on an overall level, it says that coral reefs are threatened today because of the kind of activities that are happening in the shallow waters. Human intervention is really making the life of the corals, and it's bringing us to the verge of unbalance. So that's typically what the passage is talking about. Let us move on to the questions now. The passage is primarily concerned with describing the effects of human activities on algae in coral reefs. Yes, this could be. B. Explaining how human activities are posing a threat to coral reef communities. Yes, threat is the point here, so this could be the answer. C. Discussing the process by which coral reefs deteriorate in nutrient poor waters. No, it's one of the examples and not the overall idea. So, no. Explaining how coral reefs produce food for themselves. Food is also one of the ideas and not the overall idea. E. Describing the abundance of algae and filter feeding animals in coral areas. No, this is not the answer. So, definitely A is the answer. Let's move on. The author refers to filter feeding animals, lines 23 to 24, in order to. So, let us see what the lines 23 and 24 represent. Typical symptoms of reef decline are destabilized herbivore populations and an increasing abundance of algae and filter feeding animals. So A. Provide an example of characteristic sign of reef deterioration. This has to be the answer. B. Explain how reef communities acquire sustenance for survival. No, that's not the point. C. Identify a factor that helps herbivore populations thrive. No, it is not discussed in the passage. D. Indicate a cause of decreasing nutrient input in waters that reefs inhabit. No, it's not even discussed. E. Identify members of coral reef communities that rely on coral reefs for nutrients. This is not even given in the passage. So yes, A is the answer to it. Let's move on to next question. Question number 3. According to the passage, which of the following is a factor that is threatening the survival of coral reef communities? A. The waters they inhabit contain few nutrient resources. That is actually not the threatening point. As you can see from the first passage, third line, how do clear and thus nutrient poor waters support such prolific and productive communities? B. A decline in nutrient input is disrupting their symbiotic relationship with zooxanthellae. No, because nutrient less was always the case. So B is also not the answer. C. The degraded waters of their marine habitats have reduced their ability to carry out photosynthesis. This is one of the examples and not the overall idea. So this is also not the answer. D. They are too biologically complex to survive in habitats with minimum nutrient input. This is not in the scope of the passage, so no. E. Waste byproducts result in an increase in nutrient input to reef communities. Yes, we can see this from this line that a variety of human activities are causing worldwide degradation of shallow marine habitats by adding nutrients to the water, and that is actually creating all sort of reef degradation or deterioration. So this is the answer. Passage 3 is on business. Traditionally, the first firm to commercialize a new technology has benefited from the unique opportunity to shape product definitions, forcing followers to adapt to a standard or invest in an unproven alternative. Today, however, the largest payoffs may go to the companies that lead in developing integrated approaches for successful mass production and distribution. So the first one gives us an idea of the passage and also tells us how important the concept of integrated approaches is for successful mass production, and companies who go for this always benefit. So here we are talking about the idea of the passage. Passage 2. Producers of the beta format for video cassette recorders, VCRs, for example, were first to develop the VCR commercially in 1975. But producers of the rival VHS, that is video home system format, proved to be more successful at forming strategic alliances with other producers and distributors to manufacture and market their VCR format. Seeking to maintain exclusive control over VCR distribution, beta producers were reluctant to form such alliances and eventually lost ground to VHS in the competition for the global VCR market. So the second paragraph gives us an example. Proved to be more successful because they are forming alliances with other producers and distributors to manufacture and sell their products, which producers of beta format were not doing. This tells us that the lost strategy for the problem of not creating a large market share because they lost out on integrated approaches and mass production. Moving on to third passage. Despite beta's substantial technological head start and the fact that VHS was neither technically better nor cheaper than beta, developers of VHS quickly turned a slightly early lead in sales into a dominant position. Strategic alignments with producers of pre-recorded tapes reinforced the VHS advantage. The perception among consumers that pre-recorded tapes were more available in VHS format further expanded VHS shares of the market. By the end of 1980s, beta was no longer in production. So here this has a reference to what we read, although this is not useful, but I was just relating it to the first paragraph. It is a brilliant paragraph basically that talks about the idea wherein we talk about the fact that the largest payoff will go to the company. So the first mover advantage is not always the case that will reap you the best benefits. So if you are moving and also have a successful approach of production and distribution to the consumer, that's when it gives you the maximum benefit. So this paragraph is a strengthening point. Let's move on to the questions. So the first question is, the passage is primarily concerned with which of the following? So this is also the central idea. A. Evaluating two competing technologies. No, this is not the answer. B. Tracing the impact of a new technology by narrating a sequence of events. No, this is also not talked about. Reinterpreting an event from contemporary business history. No, this is also very vague to the passage. So no. D. Illustrating business strategy by means of a case history. Yes, this is definitely a strategy by means of a case history, and they have given us an example. E. Proposing an innovative approach to business planning. No. So the second question is, according to the passage, today's successful firms, unlike successful firms in the past, may earn the greatest profits by A. Investing in research to produce cheaper versions of existing technology? No. B. Being the first to market a competing technology? No, as this is actually a loophole. So no. C. Adapting rapidly to a technological standard previously set by a competing firm? No, that's not even given in the paragraph. That's not given. So no. D. Establishing technological leadership in order to shape product definitions in advance of competing firms? No. E. Emphasizing the development of methods for the mass production and distribution of new technology? Yes, that's typically the whole idea and the intent of the passage, that integrated approaches for mass successful production and distribution. Here we can refer to the lines in the paragraph that the largest payoffs may go to the companies that lead in developing integrated approaches for successful mass production and distribution. So E is the answer. Question 3. According to the passage, consumers began to develop a preference for VCRs in the VHS format because they believed which of the following? Here we read that the perception was created that VHS pre-recorded videotapes are more available. So with that logic, we'll answer these questions. A. VCRs in the VHS format were technically better than competing format VCRs? No. VCRs in the VHS format were less expensive than competing format VCRs? No. VHS was the first standard format for VCRs? No. VHS pre-recorded videotapes were more available than beta format tapes? Yes, availability was the factor which consumers began to develop, and again we clearly figured out that from the passage, and so D is the answer. E option, VCRs in the beta format would soon cease to be produced? No. Moving on to the fourth question. The author implies that one way that VHS producers would control over the VCR market was by A. Carefully restricting access to VCR technology? No. The whole idea was creating mass distribution. B. Giving up a slight early lead in VCR sales in order to improve long-term prospects? No. C. Retaining a strict monopoly on the production of pre-recorded videotapes? This was the problem due to which the beta went out of the business. So that's also gone. D. Sharing control of the marketing of VHS format VCRs? Yes. So when you share, when you form alliances, this gives you an understanding that you are sharing control. So D has to be the answer. E. Sacrificing technological superiority over beta format VCRs in order to remain competitive in price? No. So D is the answer to it. Now, I hope you are looking at these thorough explanations with a lot of intent and understanding, and also seeking to address few points that how one-line summaries, how categorization of each paragraph really helps you to get you the answer faster. So let's move on to passage 4. Passage 4 is from philosophy. Behavior science courses should be gaining prominence in business school curricula. Recent theoretical work convincingly shows why behavioral factors such as organizational culture and employee relations are among the few remaining sources of sustainable competitive advantage in modern organizations. Furthermore, empirical evidence demonstrates clear linkages between human resource practices based in behavioral sciences and various aspects of a firm's financial success. Additionally, some of the world's most successful organizations have made unique HR practices a core element of their overall business strategies. So, the first paragraph tells us what the intent is. Basically, again, if you see, the main idea is very clear. In that sense, it puts a lot of emphasis on the fact that organizational culture or behavioral factors should be the mainstay of any organization, and HR practices should be given core element in overall strategies. So the first paragraph gives me the main idea or the overall picture. Right. Moving on. Yet, the behavior sciences are struggling for credibility in many business schools. Surveys show that business students often regard behavioral studies as peripheral to the mainstream business curriculum. This perception can be explained by the fact that business students, hoping to increase their attractiveness to prospective employers, are highly sensitive to business norms and practices, and current business practices have generally been moving away from an emphasis on understanding human behavior and toward more mechanistic organizational models. Furthermore, the status of HR professionals within the organizations tend to be lower than that of executives. So, the second paragraph basically gives us an example and about the current situation, which is going very bad. Human behavior and the mechanistic organizational world tell you how certain things in practice today are not in the correct way, because the people are not focusing much on behavioral factors and only focusing on mechanistic models. Students' perceptions would matter less if business schools were not increasingly dependent on external funding from legislatures, businesses, and private foundations for survival. Concerned with their institutions' ability to attract funding, administrators are increasingly targeting low enrollment courses and degree programs for elimination. So the third paragraph is basically a limitation because of which the organizations are not able to ensure that behavioral factor became a core element of every organization. Question 1. The primary purpose of the passage is to. So primary purpose, just by reading the passage, seems to be focusing on what factors are important to ensure that you have a sustainable core. So moving on to the options, option A. Propose a particular change to business school curricula? No. Characterize students' perceptions of business school curricula? No. Predict the consequences of a particular change in business school curricula? It's not there. So, no. D. Challenge one explanation for the failure to adopt a particular change in business school curricula? It is not there, so no. E. Identify factors that have affected the prestige of a particular field in business school curricula. Yes, one of the factor, and that's why the whole passage talks about the multiple factors that have affected the reputation of business schools. So the answer is E. Moving on to the second question. The author of the passage mentions empirical evidence, line 2, primarily in order to A. Question the value of certain commonly used HR practices? No. Illustrate a weak point about the methodology behind recent theoretical work in behavioral sciences? No, it's not talked about. C. Support a claim about the importance that business schools should place on courses in behavioral sciences? This might be the answer, as it says that the whole point of using behavioral factors will give you a competitive advantage, and then it talks about how firms that have strong behavioral factors linked to HR practices are doing financially very well. So it's like a claim. D. Draw a distinction between two different factors that affect the financial success of a business? No. E. Explain how the behavioral sciences have shaped HR practices in some business organizations? No. So rest are not relevant and C is the answer. Moving on to the third question. The author of the passage suggests which of the following about HR professionals in business organizations. So we have talked that the focus is on the status. Option A. They are generally skeptical about the value of mechanistic organizational models? No. Their work increasingly relies on an understanding of human behavior? No, this is generic and it has to be eliminated. C. Their work generally has little effect on the financial performance of those organizations? No, as the example in the passage to prove it is not given. D. Their status relative to other business executives affects the attitude of business school students toward the behavioral sciences? Yes, because we have seen that the status of HR professionals within this organization tends to be lower so as to have the high quality HR professionals. So yes, D is the answer. Their practices are unaffected by the relative prominence of the behavioral sciences within business schools? No. So here, I hope everything is clear to you. This brings us to the end of HR practice questions. I hope the detailed passages we have solved in great detail gave you a good understanding as to how the techniques we have learned in terms of avoiding traps or giving one-line summaries to the passage are helpful in getting to the answer. Till then, you can go to our app or website for detailed notes, more videos and topic-wise tests to understand the topic in depth. You can also unlock all the logged videos, documents and tests of CAT with the EduRev Infinity plan to ace your exam at less than ₹80 per month. Thank you. See you in the next class.